Previously, I was going to talk about the Jason Schreier post-mortem on Veilguard, but it didn't really reveal any new info or anything of real note. However, this post by Rhiannon Bevan on The Gamer caught my attention. Apparently, people are apologizing to the writers of the Veilguard.
I've been very critical of the Veilguard and its tone, writing, and lack of continuity ever since it released. I tended to put the blame on the Trinity, John Epler, Corinne Bursh, and lead writer Trick Weeks, for the game's tone and writing and thus its failure. I assume that nobody cares about my thoughts. Yet, I want to acknowledge that me constantly blaming the Trinity pushed the idea that they were either the sole reason or one of the major reasons for the game's failure and the death of the franchise. But now, I can safely assume that they tried their best with a bad deck of cards.
Blaming Bush for any of that never made sense. She came in to salvage an already sinking ship. Anyone that was blaming her at any point was uninformed.
For one, the article didn't put the blame on EA. EA wanted a live service. It ultimately never got that. Mike Laidlaw, previously in charge in 2017, disagreed, and instead of arguing, just quit. Bioware now had 5-6 years to tell EA that, and they couldn't do it till the last 2. Yes, Veilguard was already a hot potato. Now that Mac Walters was the production director, till he left in 2023. Corinne, Weeks, and Epler are still to blame. It's still their product. It doesn't matter if Joplin or Morrison or Dreadwolf or whomever left came before. Rewriting something that already is there, while it is a big task, isn't that hard, especially when you're a woke ideologue. Then everything has one giant brush, which has nothing to do with EA. Writing is still writing, and it's still bad, no matter the conditions of how the words were formed. Good writers can write crap. Either they wrote it, or at least read what came before and kept it. It's bad, and it's their fault. Weeks, the lead writer, was always on the project. He, and thus they, deserve all the blame. This is because writing can be easily altered, which means they wrote, or at least kept, the finished product.
I'm pulling a barf!
Apparently the writing was worse before they got it. Again, this is still Weeks' fault. According to Schreier, the game's snarky tone, a style of video game storytelling once ascendant, that was quickly falling out of fashion in pop culture but had been part of Goldman's vision for the multiplayer game, worried that Dragon Age could face the same outcome as Forspoken, a recent title that had been hammered over its impertinent banter. Bioware leaders ordered a belated rewrite of the game's dialogue to make it sound more serious. In the end, the resulting tonal inconsistencies would only add to the game's poor reception with fans. They're the ones who made the worst dialogue with tonal inconsistencies. Remember the reviewers by YouTubers saying,
"Oh, how are we gonna get up there?"
There's always a way to get places.
Oh my god, wow. Thank you for your very insightful dialogue.
You don't give yourself enough credit. You're smart. You'll figure it out.
Well, thank you for thinking that.
Of course. Also, what is it exactly?
It's the Nodus Dirthalin.
I'm bad at flirting in a video game, just like I'm bad in real life. Then what's the point of video games?
That's just lame writing, and a writer of any value would know that. Then there's the woke crap. It came from these three, in case looking at these two didn't give that away, or just read Epler's tweets, or his Blue Skies, whatever. They made Tosh end her story.
So, I'm non-binary.
And the character assassination of Isabella in this scene. That's on them.
Oh, you know I didn't mean it right. I'd never do that on purpose.
Apparently, the next Mass Effect game, the team involved, couldn't take the Dreadwolf project seriously. In fact, the Mass Effect team went on to overhaul parts of the game and design a number of additional scenes, including a rich, emotional finale that players loved. Which means these people are incompetent, and developers from another game, including Mac Walters, made the best part of Veilguard. This is made even worse after David Gators, a relevant ex-writer of Dragon Age who had nothing to do with Veilguard since he quit after Inquisition, said, "It always seemed that when the Mass Effect team made its demands in meetings with EA regarding the resources it needed, it got its way. This is a former lead writer on the Dragon Age franchise who left before development of the new game started. But Dragon Age always had to fight against headwinds. Okay, seems to me if those three guys, and yes, they are guys, listened to the Mass Effect team more, Veilguard wouldn't be a pile of crap. Also keep in mind that this is during Andromeda and Anthem's development, which were still crap, which Gator had nothing to do with or had any knowledge of. Why he's even in this post, I don't even know. So no, we can't blame EA for being a publisher and wanting a thing it can't have. I'm sure there's some mess of changing leaders and project direction, but Weeks was still the lead writer since 2015. We can't blame the Mass Effect team for making good content for the last part of Veilguard, or at the time it was called Dreadwolf. But we can blame the three main people involved for their shoddy game design, bad marketing ideas, boring and lame dialogue, the project direction, and their woke crap that's been destroying the industry. What remained from Joplin, Morrison, or Dreadwolf, we don't know. Ultimately, these guys were in charge. You'd think after 3 commercial and creative failures in a row, Bioware would learn something. But like most of Canada, and the Canadians, they never learn. And all they can do is apologize.
You're pushing for the best possible outcome for the game, which also was the best outcome for the fans and the players. And I think that like that's lost in the industry because like Ray and I had a reputation where we could like fight with executives. Didn't happen very often, but like we could, and we did, and we always won because it's like there wasn't a choice because I think the better games resulted, you know. So I think for us that was like the sort of some of the nuance of what we did in the business, that we just made sure the games were good. We know what good games are. You know, we play lots of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going to get into all of that because, you know, keeping some of that identity and those core values.